Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on OurScoop.com. You already know.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop, OurScoop.com's podcast. I'm John DiCarlo, the editor of OurScoop.com. Season 8, Episode 6.
Famous number sixes. James and Bill Russell.
That's the voice of Sam Cohn you're hearing. It's going to be a wild and wacky first few minutes of The Scoop.
Considering Cayden just left us.
Philadelphia Inquirer's Sam Cohn, we should say, is just we promised you that he would hop in every once in a while when he could. Sam covered Penn State and Purdue. This is not becoming a Penn State football podcast. Don't worry about it. Sam already gets enough crap as it is from his Twitter followers. Cayden Steele will be joining us in a second. Javon Edmonds will be joining us in a few minutes as well. But I want to start on time here. Sure, go ahead, Sam.
I think I sent this in the group chat, but no one answered. No one's been answering my text lately in the group chat. That's another point.
Maybe you should get the hint, Sam. you know I don't mean that, right?
It's only a matter of time until I get kicked. Arthur Johnson added me to a Twitter list for Temple, like a Temple Twitter list.
Oh, I saw that, and I just smiled and went on.
I'm not sure if he realizes that it's going to be way oversaturated with Penn State content.
That's for Arthur to find out.
It's only a matter of time until I get removed. It's only a matter of time before more people start to unfollow me. I just thought it was funny.
Cayden Steele is with us now.
We can see his face
with video as well. There he is.
Yeah, my phone malfunctioned, so it didn't work for some reason. When I kind of lost the Zoom, my phone froze, shut it off, got my laptop, restarted. Now I'm back on my laptop. What a day. Working through adversity here, but just happened.
Working through adversity.
Working through adversity. We are going to talk about Temple's unsightly season opener. Sam's probably going to, you can stay as long as you want, buddy. Sam's probably going to duck out at some point, but wanted to say hi to us.
I'd like to make a point where, like, when you send the link in the group chat, if I'm not doing anything, I just hop in and say hi for a few minutes.
That's part of the value that people get. You did, in fairness, you did call us on the way back. When we were coming back from Durham, North Carolina, you checked in with us. Were you in a layover, or were you already back from West Lafayette?
When I was on the pod, or when I called your phone?
When you called on Saturday when we were driving back, where were you at that point?
When you were driving back, I was driving to New York.
That's right. You were driving to New York for a family wedding. The Penn State Purdue football game was already in your rearview mirror because that was Thursday.
It worked out very well that I could go to the wedding, go to the game and go to the wedding, because my weekends are going to be pretty filled with travel for the next.
Lot of travel. Everybody wants a piece of Sam Cohn right now. But
go that far.
What's that?
So I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, let's just go with it. Just take the free publicity. Again, Javon's going to join us in a little bit, but we are going to talk about Temple's 30-0 loss at Duke, what Temple has coming up this weekend in its home opener against the Lafayette Leopards. Sam, you didn't miss a whole lot of good football last Friday night in Durham, North Carolina. I predicted a loss. I predicted a 10-point loss. I can't say I predicted a 30-0 loss, but Kyle had tweeted this out Friday night, and I couldn't agree with him more. And this was the tweet that he sent out. Everybody knew that this was a rebuilding season. I think there was some optimism that this season would be like 2014, but no, this is going to be a 2013-esque season. I couldn't agree with him more. Temple averaged just a little more than 3 yards per play, 159 total yards on 58 plays. Stan Drake just kept talking about how his team didn't cut it loose, which implied that they were thinking and reacting more and acting less. They looked unsure. DeJuan Mathis went 7 of 14 for 56 yards in the first half and finished 11 of 21 for just 83 yards. Had that sharp 16-yard throw to Jose Barbone over the middle. Jose Barbone and Adonicus Sanders look solid, but again, very few bright spots in this game. Sam, you have your hand up like you want to make a point.
Yeah, well, I said to you before we started recording that there's not many articulate points I can make about Temple because one, I didn't see the game, and two, I haven't been covering the team as closely as you guys have these last few weeks. Javon's hopping on.
There he is, Javon Edmonds joining us. Javon, you've joined Sam in the middle of making a Temple football point. Please go ahead, Sam.
But I will say that from obviously I'm following plenty of the Owl Scoop coverage and only the Owl Scoop coverage. Sorry, Javon.
He's still part of Owl Scoop. He just had Temple news duties on Friday.
No, I know. I'm just messing with him. There are two things I think I'm excited to see this year with Temple football from kind of just like an outside perspective as in terms of following the coverage and watching when I can. The first being Kyle's use of his new app. I've had Kyle's Twitter notification on for a while, but Kyle implementing the use of his app, I'm very excited for. The other thing I'm excited for is that it'll be interesting to see how Stan Drayton, how do I put this in a way that makes sense? Like reacts and changes in terms of personnel and scheme throughout the year, where like, are there times where, the depth chart was what it was. It was a lot of discourse, I think, on the pod, and you guys had written about, what surprises looked like or why things looked like the way they did on that first depth chart. So personnel wise, how things change of like, did someone who maybe was highly touted coming in the season sort of fall off, and as they started to play actual games didn't look that way. And then similar for the opposite where, someone who maybe they didn't envision playing super well gets more opportunities, but also like, does Stan Drayton evolve as a head coach? Obviously, his first year coaching is the way he approaches certain things, certain aspects of the game, certain decisions he makes in game throughout the season. I'm curious to see how he progresses and how he changes, especially in talking to the media and how he kind of talks about and talks through ideas and decisions that he makes. That's always interesting for a first year coach. So to see the way that kind of progresses, I think, especially from like the Stan Drayton, it was like, I don't want to say he was overzealous about the way they prepared for the start of the season, but to then have him come off like a 30-point loss and be like very even keeled to say we didn't, we expected to be where they didn't expect to come out and be unbelievable. But just his reaction, I think, is interesting to see how that'll progress.
You make a few really good points there, and it's something that I wanted to talk about today because I've been through this before. I've covered Ron Dickerson, Bobby Wallace, Al Golden, Steve Adazio, Matt Rule, Jeff
Warner.
Collins. Who?
Pop Warner.
Okay, that's far. But look, I get it. If you're a Temple football fan, nobody should be happy with a 30-0 loss. And again, to Kyle's point, I think that you might think, okay, the facilities are better than when Al Golden took over, maybe even when Steve Adazio succeeded him and Matt Rule succeeded him. And yeah, maybe there was some optimism that there was some talent on the team, and whatever your point of view was, whatever your entry point into this whole line of thinking is, maybe you thought there was more talent on the roster than people expected, and maybe it was just being underutilized or utilized improperly. And again, people hate hearing this, but the season is a week to week to week thing. Sam, you talked about it'll be interesting to see how Stan Drayton evolves as a head coach. It's going to be a huge part of this first season. I mean, that's going to be a big part of what we're looking at here. There were a lot of fans, again, justifiably so, or understandably so, or predictably so. Maybe I should even say, to put a finer point on it. Again, I don't expect anybody to be happy with a 30-0 loss, but then the fans come out of the woodwork saying he wasn't critical enough. His post-game press conference was a joke. Why isn't he saying this? Why isn't he saying that? I can't emphasize this enough to fans from my own corner of the world. The head coach, his job is not to make you happy in the post-game press conference by, channeling your feelings and your venom and throwing it back. And, if I'm Stan Drayton, which I'm not, I am not coming into that post-game press conference and saying, we've got a ton of work to do. My offensive line was terrible. I've only got a select handful of kids on this team that can play. The rest of them stink. If you're all fire and brimstone and you want to make a splash, Stan Drayton hasn't, Stan seems like a very competent guy. For his sake, I hope he succeeds, but he's still proving himself as a head coach. He still has a lot to prove. He's not going to come out and just eviscerate his roster to the media. And now he might as the season goes on in certain aspects, but Matt Rule didn't really do that. Al Golden didn't really do that. I mean, he said after the game, I have to be upbeat and positive. And I'm paraphrasing here. They are building, whether you like it or not. Now, if he's still in year 2, year 3, and year 4, if he's still making excuses and saying, we're young, and then they're not that young anymore, then you got a problem. This is 1 week. And again, I get it. There aren't too many good things that came out of the game other than maybe them tightening up Duke, and holding them to, 6 points in the second half. But I just think if you're looking at 1 week and you're really trying to squeeze things in and say Stan Drayton wasn't critical enough in a post-game press conference, you're going to be in for a long season and maybe a long couple of seasons. I think, we talked about this on the Javon and I were talking about on the trip back. We might have been talking to you about it on the phone, Sam. After 1 week, and it's just 1 week, I think you saw a handful of guys on both sides of the ball that look like they belong. And I'm talking about maybe like Leighton Jordan McGee on defense. I thought Jalen McMurray didn't have a perfect game by any means. Nobody had a perfect game, but it looked like he could cover. On offense, I think Jose Barbone and Adonicus Sanders looked solid. Isaac Moore did have that tough holding penalty that cost him that one drive. I wrote about it as a turning point in the game. I don't know that there are really too many key turning points in a 30-0 game, but it did kill that drive. I think on the whole, Isaac Moore and Adam Klein probably were not your biggest problems on the offensive line. But save for a few guys on each side of the ball and Mackenzie Morgan, the punter, having a good game, everyone else either looked overwhelmed or lost. And the question is, in week 2, playing against the Lafayette team, an FCS team that is really rebuilding, has a true freshman quarterback, do they get some confidence? Are they the guy that just, hey, I need to see somebody get the ball in the end zone, build up some confidence, even if it's against an inferior opponent? Are we having a different conversation week 3, week 4, week 5? Or are we still stuck talking about some of the same things? But as of now, in week 1, I saw just a handful of guys on both sides of the ball look like they belong, and everybody else looks like they're either stuck or overwhelmed. Javon, I'll kick it over to you. I don't know how you feel about that. Agree or disagree, or want to add some new stuff to this?
I mean, obviously, you want to see some stuff. Saturday against Lafayette, it's a bye game. Bye games are literally work on the playbook, get some work, get the second unit in there. It's the preseason. That's what a bye game is. It's the preseason. So if they can't show any glimpses, I don't even want to say promise, just football competency is what I'll use, then Temple has a big problem. You got one quarterback, a transfer from an FCS school who can't throw to the boundary, and then you got another quarterback who just threw for under 50% and under 85 yards in the same game. So you've clearly got problems. You got a receiver, Malik Cooper, who ate popcorn before the game. Barbone and Sanders look good. You got a kick returner who lets his emotions get all the way of the best of him. And then corners, you've got burnt toast out there. So, I mean, they clearly knew what they were doing when they set up this schedule. I think Carey's staff is responsible for this season's schedule with play a Power 5, then a bye game, then another Power 5, then another bye game, because they're going to need confidence boosts this week at Lafayette and home against Lafayette, and in 2 weeks home against UMass, because Temple, as we saw, a few levels below Duke and Rutgers, which for that game to be homecoming, God bless the Temple fan base. But they need everything under the sun to go right Saturday to get their confidence back, because if you're a coaching staff, like you said, John, you're not saying it in the presser, but you're saying in your meeting rooms that, there's a lot of work to do, and some guys have to get brought in through the portal and recruiting, because there aren't many good football players on the Temple football roster.
Well, I don't think there are right now. Again, right now, I think from my corner of the world as I see it, look, I think realistically, I mean, and Stam talked about this. He said after Friday, I knew I had my work cut out for me. Some fans are going to say that's an excuse. I think he's just being realistic. And when you are a head coach that's rebuilding a program, you have to watch out for missteps in the game, after the game, before the game. People are going to critically analyze what you say, what you don't say. I don't think they have a ton of good football players on the team right now, but football players can develop, and we'll see how they look. Like I said, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, in that secondary. Javon not pulling any punches, referring to a secondary that didn't play too well. Dominic Hill had 2 penalties. Elijah Clark did not look good at all in getting beat on that 39-yard touchdown pass to Samir Hagan's St. Joe's Prep product. On the offensive line, just some other takeaways from the game. Chris Weezian and Stan Drayton elected to stick with the same 5 players there. Jermaine Donaldson, I think I said this heading into last week's game, the depth chart comes out. You see how true it is, how true to form it is heading into the game. For the most part, it was. But Jermaine Donaldson, who was listed as a starter at guard, at one of the guard positions, did not play. So it was Isaac Moore at left tackle, James Favenu at left guard, Rich Rodriguez at center, Wisdom Quarshie at right guard, Adam Klein at right tackle. On Monday, Stan Drayton praised James Favenu. I think he said he had a great game or some superlative. I did not say anything about Wisdom Quarshie, who I think had a rough game. I'll get to that in a little bit. Ahmad Anderson really struggled in the return game. He was indecisive, and that indecisiveness, it hurt him on a punt return, hurt him on a kickoff return. And he had a fumble on a reverse. He just looked indecisive. I think he struggles with vision. And so, and some of these things are coming through and showing through. And these are things that we saw. These are things that we saw last season as well. I guess, again, to me, as of now, I would put some of these players into 3 different categories. Players that look like they belong and look like they get it. Some who just look lost and might get it. And some who just, may not come around. I think the previous staff, or 2 staffs ago, really recruited a player like Elijah Clark because he was a bigger corner with length. I don't know that he has the speed on the outside to keep up with some receivers. We'll see. Again, Leighton Jordan and Jordan McGee had 8 tackles apiece. I think they looked like they belonged out there. Now, maybe a couple weeks from now, we're singing a different tune about Dominic Hill. Maybe he cleans some things up technique-wise. In terms of the offensive line, again, Stan seems high on James Favenu, a guy who played sparingly at Houston. Wisdom Quarshie, didn't play well, in my humble opinion. He looked a little overmatched. At times, it looked like they felt more comfortable playing Rich Rodriguez. It was a left-handed snapper there at center, and it looked like they trusted him more at center. Before we get into more details here, Cayden, I haven't gotten to you yet. What are your impressions from what you saw Friday night in the opener?
Yeah, didn't expect them to lose. Was it 30-0 coming in? I think me and Javon last week were a little optimistic. I think we both chose Temple. I thought maybe they could, grab an upset, but in all reality, I think it kind of set in what this team currently is. The roster is still, rebuilding. A lot of the players left from Cary are still here. Stan only has 1 recruiting class that have come in, a lot of true freshmen who aren't playing. So I think, kind of what you expect, it's going to take a long time to rebuild this program. And then, for people that expect, there are fans out there, like you mentioned, kind of just getting mad that Stan's not throwing his players underneath the bus and getting mad. This is his first year, like you mentioned, kind of agreeing with you, is that he's got to be able to, build that confidence in his players. And if he throws his players underneath the bus, I think, this first year is about building that culture. So that 30-0 loss, I don't think at the end of the day is a huge surprise, but he's got a lot of work to do. And I think setting that culture is probably his first goal, even though if he's always going to come out and say he wants to win games, but it's going to be tough this year.
So obviously how teams start is critically important. Not only how they start a game, but how they start a season is critically important. And when I got back from Durham, I went back and rewatched the game, and I'm not going to go line by line by line through the first, second, and third and fourth quarters here. But just to read you some of the notes that I've made, when you just see some of these things that became problematic, and we saw these things early on. These were some of my takeaways and some of these early things that they need to fix. And as a staff, again, they either need to decide, okay, this is fixable, or we just have to recruit more to this position, and we don't have enough there. And again, these aren't things that I think the staff is always going to be so candid about in press conferences, I think you could hear Stan Drayton say, hey, we need more veteran depth at this position in the future. We need more here, more there. If you're a fan that's looking for him to call guys out, throw them under the bus, I just don't think that works anymore. Sure, he's going to point to penalties and mental lapses and stuff like that. I don't think he's going to take it easy on this team necessarily. But again, I think for you guys as fans who want your venom matched by the head coach, I just don't know that that's smart on his end. And I don't know that's really his style. But just taking more of a micro look at some of the other things that went wrong in the game, these were some of my impressions. If you look back at the third play of Duke's first series, that 52-yard pass to Jordan Moore, who was, again, a guy that was competing for the starting quarterback job with Riley Leonard. We talked about him in last week's podcast, talked about how he would become another part of their offense, and he certainly was. It looked like it was Mahim McCargo who was slow to pick him up. And again, Mahim McCargo was playing some safety. They put him back at linebacker. He was slow to pick him up as he went in motion and turned upfield for a wheel route. And then you can see Mahim McCargo just didn't have the positioning and the speed to keep up with them. And then Moore made a move on him to make him miss once he got the ball. And then he made Alex Odom, another safety, again, McCargo was playing safety at one point earlier in the preseason. He made Mahim McCargo miss, and then he made Alex Odom miss as well on that 52-yard pass. On Temple's first offensive series, that again was a bit of a microcosm of their night. And then we saw struggles from the interior of the offensive line and some poor play from Ahmad Anderson. On Temple's first play from scrimmage, Anderson comes across to his right on a jet sweep, and he only got a yard. Now, granted, he didn't get great blocking on that play from James Della Pesca, who started tight end. Again, David Martin Robinson missed the game with an injury. He did not suit up. Again, he's considered to be a game-to-game or week-to-week thing there. So James Della Pesca is out there blocking on the play. Didn't do a great job of blocking. And Ed Sadie didn't really do a good job of blocking there. And Dorian Mossy stopped him after a yard after Sadie didn't really seal him off. But I just think Ahmad Anderson struggles with his vision and his cuts when he's looking upfield. It just seems like there's something missing there. I think he's got good enough speed, but sometimes I just think he doesn't see things well enough and react well enough. On second down, Wisdom Corshi got beat and allowed pressure on a play that went for a 7-yard loss to Jose Barbone. And then on third down, there was that fumbled exchange between Dwan Mathis and Ahmad Anderson that lost 5 yards and ended that drive. So they just struggled right out of the gate. And then on the first play, Duke's next series, it looked like Leighton Jordan could have been in line for an interception there, and he sort of mistimed his jump or whatever motion he was using to get into the passing lane there. Instead, that play went for an 8-yard pass to Eli Pancol upfield. When the drive stalled 2 plays later, Ahmad Anderson bobbled that 53-yard punt and lost a yard on the return when he tried unsuccessfully to cut it back. So again, we talked about that earlier. Just really kind of struggles with his decision-making in the return game. I asked Stan Drayton about that after the game, and he said, I think he's a good returner. I think we just have to get him relaxed more so. We'll see. Again, I think Ahmad has some ability there. Whether he really truly is a good, decisive enough returner, we'll see in the coming weeks. But so far, he's got a lot of work to do there. And then on the second play of Temple's next series, I'm not sure what Wisdom Corshi was seeing as he began to move his feet to his right. When he did, he allowed Dwayne Carter to blow up that play for a 7-yard loss. Richard Rodriguez tried picking up the block, but was too late in getting there. Without being in the film room there with the staff, I'm not sure whose responsibility it was to get Carter, but it was a bad missed block and missed assignment either way. Again, coming from the interior of the offensive line, an area that I think really struggled on Friday night. Then Temple went 3 and out on the next series, one that really never, they went 3 and out, capping off that series, going 3 and out in the next play. That play never had a chance to succeed because Duke's best defensive player, Shaka Hayward, their third-team All-ACC linebacker, he was right on Jakari Norwood there on a throw out to the flat that really wasn't on target, but they just, any term that you can think of, the team getting off schedule, not being in a rhythm, that happened just straight out of the gate. And there were so many different parts to it, fumbled exchanges, Dwan Mathis and Ahmad Anderson not being on the same page. Wisdom Corshi struggling a little bit on the inside, some miscommunication there on one play between Corshi and Rich Rodriguez. So there were a lot of things early on that set the tone where you thought, okay, this team's got more work to do than we thought. And that was just kind of a microcosm of their night. They never got things going offensively. Again, if you're looking for a positive, and I don't think it's coach speak, holding Duke to 6 points in the second half is a plus. It could be something they could build on. I think in a different set of circumstances last year under the previous staff, I think that game goes completely off the rails, and you could be looking at a 40 or 50 point loss. So they did hold a similarly rebuilding team under Mike Elko. Again, Duke was 3-9 last year too. They held them to 6 points in the second half. The question is, what do they do with that bright spot? What can they take from that moment? But otherwise, those were some of the things that really kind of just set the tone for the rest of the night and showed you, again, couldn't agree more with Kyle on this, that this could be looking more like a 2013 season in Matt Rule's first season at Temple, where they went 2-10 as opposed to a 6-6 campaign. I think they've just got a lot of work to do, but so many things that we see early on where you think, okay, they've got a lot of things to clean up. And again, I think I keep coming back to this. I think you've got players in three different categories: ones that look like they belong and need to keep progressing, ones that just look lost and don't get it yet, and some that just may never get it. Right, so I realize that a lot of you may not know a whole lot about the Lafayette Leopards. They're an FCS program. They are also rebuilding like Temple is. They have a new head coach in John Troxel. And to give you some insight into Lafayette, I wanted to talk to Ryan Roeder. He is a former Temple grad assistant, and he was here from 2006 to 2008 under Al Golden, and was part of the heavy lift that really got the program turned around. And Ryan went on to some additional coaching jobs at the FCS level. He was at Rhode Island. He was at Princeton. He eventually spent several seasons with the New York Giants and survived a couple of different coaching changes there. He got to work with Eli Manning, got to work with Daniel Jones. After that, when Joe Judge took over and reshuffled his staff there, Ryan found his way back into the college game, spent the last 2 seasons at Penn State as an analyst, and now he's with Lafayette as the wide receivers coach there. So I wanted to talk to Ryan for this week's podcast, talk to him a little bit about Lafayette, what they've got going on. Again, they're a team that's rebuilding. They're facing a lot of challenges, but Ryan was also able to talk to me about his early days at Temple and what that meant to him. So we will play this interview for you now. All right, so as you guys know, Temple is going to be looking for its first win of the season this Saturday, 2 p.m. against the Lafayette Leopards. To give us some insight into what Temple is going to be facing Saturday is Lafayette's wide receivers coach, Ryan Roeder. And I thought it'd be great to have Ryan on the podcast this week, in addition to just having known him we're talking about it just before we started recording here, for close to 20 years. And I feel like the time's flown by. Not only has Ryan had a really successful coaching career, and he's part of the rebuild now at Lafayette under John Troxel, can talk to us about what Temple's going to be looking at this weekend. Ryan also has a great perspective and a unique perspective on Temple football. And when Stan Drayton talks about culture and all the things that Temple fans have grown accustomed to hearing about, Ryan was a big part of the heavy lift under Al Golden, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the interview. But Ryan, first, thanks, buddy, for doing this. I really appreciate it. How you doing?
Great, John. Thank you for having me on. It's great to see you. It's really good to see you. Good to be on with you, and look forward to hopefully seeing you this weekend at the game.
Yeah, Ryan. Before we get into like your background, which includes stops at the FCS level, like your stint with the Giants and all the players you work with there, and getting into your time at Temple, I don't want to overlook the big thing here, which is that you guys are 1-0 heading into Temple, playing Temple this weekend, coming back to Lincoln Financial Field, and I know it was an offensive struggle, but you guys beat a 2-time defending conference champion, and I don't have to tell you that when you're rebuilding and you're revamping and you're talking about changing processes and changing a culture, the guys just need to see some success every once in a while. And what did it mean for you guys, from the most simple perspective, just to grab a win and to get it in the way you did? Sure, I'm sure you would have wanted to put up some better offensive numbers, but to get the defensive stop like that, like to just kind of buck up and win a game, what did that mean for you guys to just get this era off to a 1-0 start? Yeah,
it was huge, John. John Troxel's our head coach. We're a new program, just like new coaching staff, just like Coach Drayton. And what we're going through here is, you're just trying to get guys to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to get guys to buy into Coach Troxel's vision. We have a lot of veteran guys on defense, some younger guys on offense, but you're trying to change behavior, and you're asking them to trust you. And our kids fought hard, so we're just really proud of our kids and the way they fought. And a win's a win. It's hard to beat anybody. And as you alluded to, Sacred Heart was a playoff team last year. Played Holy Cross, who's been the conference champion in the Patriot League. Played them incredibly tough in the playoffs. So a good confidence builder for our guys, and it was a fun afternoon at Fisher Stadium.
In a defensive battle like that, I know you guys didn't get a lot going in the passing game. You do have a true freshman at quarterback starting for you, and Ryan Schuster. Without giving away the offensive game plan heading into Saturday, what can you tell us about your receivers? You do have your leading receiver back from a year ago and Julius Young, but what can you tell us about this group of receivers that you're working with?
Yeah, they've been great. They've bought in. Julius Young's a veteran guy. Joe Gillette is a great story. The Patriot League media outlet did a story on him. His battle. Had cancer last spring and fought through that and was just a true warrior in every sense, as far as not missing things in the spring. And really, if you get a chance for anybody to check out that article, that's Joe Gillette. And there's nobody that's more admired on our team than Joe. So Julius Young, Joe Gillette, two veteran guys, Chris Caracia, a young guy from New Jersey, and then Elijah Stewart, another young guy from New Jersey, all played last weekend. But high hopes for those guys this year, and looking forward to another opportunity on Saturday.
And like I said before, you have a true freshman quarterback starting for you in Ryan Schuster. You're a former college quarterback yourself, having played the position at Albany, and you helped lead your program to a Northeast Conference championship back in 2002. So I know you're coaching the receivers there, but it's all intertwined. Can you tell us about what you've seen from him? And I'm sure it helps to have you on the staff because you know what he's going through and what he's processing now on the field, off the field. Can you tell us a little bit about him and what you've seen from him as a quarterback?
Yeah, well, I think, quarterbacking, it all comes down to how fast you can process information, and you got to be a fast thinker. So the biggest thing I've seen from Ryan is that he put in the time as quickly as we were allowed to, as quickly as we were allowed to get him information as far as learning an offense, and you learn a new language and he's put the time in and that's allowed him to play faster. And, when you can process things quickly and make quick decisions, to me, that's the key to being a successful quarterback. And Ryan's shown that ability for us.
In watching film and getting ready for Saturday, what did you see from Temple's defense? I mean, they obviously weren't very successful in the first half against Duke and Riley Leonard, and he completed his first 15 passes against them. And I guess maybe one of the few bright spots for them on that side of the ball was that they tightened things up a bit in the second half. They held Duke to 2 field goals. It was an interesting opener because, Stan Drayton's rebuilding Temple, Mike Elko's rebuilding at Duke, but they obviously got the better of Temple and took it to them in a 30-0 game. But in looking at film, what do you see of that Temple defense? What do you see in terms of some of the challenges in terms of just getting the ball downfield against that defense in that second half?
Well, the overall athleticism, athleticism stands out. They got some good pass rushers up front that we're going to have to be aware of. And, just the speed, side to side and sideline to sideline. So, I think those are the things that will provide the biggest challenge for us as far as, trying to block those guys and trying to move the football.
Is this a unique situation for you guys, Ryan? Because again, and we'll get to your background at Temple in a second, but, this is, typically people say, oh, FBS team against an FCS team. This is a game that Temple's supposed to win, but you guys are coming off a win and they're coming off a loss and they can't take you guys for granted. They can't take anything for granted here. Does it make it a little tougher for you guys and that they may have a real chip on their shoulder coming into this game and they're not coming off like this isn't a Temple team that's coming off like a 30-point win at Duke. They're looking for they're looking for a win. And I would imagine they can't take anything for granted. Is that kind of an extra challenge for you guys heading into Saturday?
I don't know, John. I think we're both such new staffs that you're all just kind of figuring out, last week was what's a game week like, and now we're going on the road, so we're all kind of figuring things out as new staffs. But I know this, our players will be excited. For them, it's a big deal. It's a big deal to play in Lincoln Financial Field. A lot of these guys from Pennsylvania, from New Jersey, they'll be excited, and they'll have family there, and they'll be excited to compete.
Now, prior to coming to Lafayette, to work for John, you'd been an analyst on both sides of the ball for the past 2 seasons at Penn State under James Franklin. Talk to us about what you took from your time there and what it was like to be up there, part of that staff and part of that program.
Well, football weekends are pretty fun up there. I'll say that. It was a great experience. It really was. It was. The whole state of Pennsylvania seems like it comes there on football weekends, but learned a ton. Really enjoyed my experience there, but in the analyst role, you lose a little bit of the interaction with the kids on the field and things of that nature. So was excited to get back out on the field and here at Lafayette. But great experience at Penn State. Very thankful to James Franklin for that opportunity.
Was that part of the appeal? Like, how did things come together with John at Lafayette? Was it a matter of just like, I want to get back on the field, and it was the right time, right opportunity?
Yeah, I think anybody you talk to, about John Troxel will say he's a first class guy, and he's a great person. So I think it was, I'm from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Coach Troxel's from Phillipsburg. We have there's a great president here, Nicole Hurd. Great AD and Sharita Freeman, who from her time at Temple. And it just seemed like things were aligning. And, key to the good job is, working for a great guy and looking forward to going to work every day. And so I think those were the biggest things for me.
And then, prior to being at Penn State, you were with the Giants in the NFL for 7 years, working with the wide receivers, the tight ends, the quarterbacks. You started off, working for a legend in Tom Coughlin. And I think what's most impressive is that you survived the coaching changes from Tom Coughlin to Ben McAdoo to Pat Shurmur. And that's not easy to do, and that's not easy to do year to year in the NFL. And in the process, you got to work with Daniel Jones too. What was it like, just that chapter in your coaching career, being in the NFL, working with those coaches, working in the NFC East and everything that came with it?
It was a great experience. Personally, it was all our, when we moved there, our oldest daughter was a few months old. So it feels like all our kids were born there, and we were there for 7 years. So, just great people, great experience. I feel like I got to work really closely with a number of different offensive coordinators. And as you mentioned, I worked with the receivers, I worked with the tight ends. Then my last 2 years, I got to work with the quarterbacks, with Eli and Daniel. So that was a unique atmosphere, as far as Eli's last year, Daniel's first year. But what a great quarterback room that was, and getting to work with the quarterbacks the last 2 years. So it was an awesome experience. I felt like I got an unbelievable education, as far as the X's and O's of the game. And it was a good run.
One of the other things I wanted to ask you too, and obviously Matt Rule really well from your time at Temple and part of that coaching tree. And I remember talking to Matt about this and asked him what the NFL was like, and he'd said to me in part, like, one of the biggest misconceptions is you don't have to be a big name in coaching to make an impact in the NFL. These guys are living contract to contract, and if they feel that you can help them get to their next contract, whether it's with the slightest bit of footwork, the slightest bit of technique, they're going to be locked in and listening to you. Was that your experience there with the Giants? Because it sounds like that was his experience there in his brief time there. And he said, the NFL is a lot more of a collaborative, locked in environment than people would think.
Well, I've gotten that question a lot over the years, John. And I think the biggest thing is, to those guys, they're young kids, they're 22, 23, most of the leagues, 22, 23, 24, 25. Yeah. And you're just their next coach, so they've had coaches their whole life, and you're just their next coach. And to Matt's point, if you're going to show someone that you're invested in trying to, reach that goal together, that's, to me, that's the the simplest way to talk about coaching, right? You're both trying to reach the same goal, and I'm trying to help you reach that goal, and I'm gonna show you how you can improve. And I think that's the best way to develop a player-coach relationship.
As a former quarterback yourself, and as a guy who was a successful college quarterback, I mean, we haven't gotten the chance to see each other as much over the years, but I know you. I know how hard you work. I know how process-oriented you are, and I know how dedicated you are to your job. And you're not a big self-promoter, but is there any point in your career when you're working with the Giants where you kind of just step back for a second and say, I get to work with Eli Manning today, or I get to work with a guy that was the first-round pick that they're trying to tie the franchise to? Do you have those moments where you kind of take a step back and say, wow, this is pretty cool?
Yeah, it was always fun when we were deciding when what the first calls of the game were going to be and what the first third down call was going to be. Those were always, those last 2 years in New York. You talk about a quarterback room where Mike Shula was the offensive coordinator. You had Eli, Daniel Jones, Alex Tanney, who now coaches for the Eagles. He was there as well, and Pat Sherman being the head coach, and we kind of all putting together the plan together and things like that. So that was an awesome experience, and the things you pick up from those guys and things you pick up from a guy like Eli, and the biggest thing I can say about Eli is he's the greatest team guy I've ever been around. You talk about a year where he's essentially being replaced, and the way he mentored Daniel, just within that quarterback room was extremely impressive to watch.
Your brother Jason's the head coach at Freedom High School in Bethlehem, and I guess you could say you're part of a football family. And I'm sure we've talked about this in the past, but did you kind of know from an early age that you wanted to get into coaching once you were done playing? Is that something that was kind of ingrained in you, or was it not that simple?
Well, I wish I had a better plan, John, when I graduated college, but I went out to Indianapolis and I was working a job for a combine company.
Right.
And the spring was fine. I graduated in December. The spring was fine. And then that next football season rolled around, and I said, something's missing. And I think I just missed being a part of a team, and I missed having a game to look forward to on the weekend. So I was out of it for 1 year, and then the next year I got back in 2004 coaching at Holy Cross.
Now I wanted to again go back and close things out here with talking about your time at Temple with Al Golden, and again you were as big a part of that rebuild. Coaches talk about looking back and seeing faces, and as well as thinking of just names, and you did so much work there and helped really build the culture. Take us back to how you got connected to Al and landed at Temple in the first place.
Yeah. So I was, I had met Ryan Day the year before working Florida's football camp. And Ryan came on with Al to be the wide receivers coach. And I was down working a summer camp, and they had some guys leave. And then I took the job in the summer, and then I had to get enrolled in a graduate class where I met my beautiful wife, Megan.
Yes.
And, as they say, the rest is history, John.
Yes. And again, Megan and I had the chance to get to know each other, and you guys have an incredible family. And I know she's been really supportive to you, and we got to know each other during that time. You work so hard as a GA, and I would imagine you work even harder under Al Golden. What was day-to-day life like for you as a GA? Because again, we both know how seriously Al took that job, and just how much of a nut he was in a good way to really get things turned around, and how much of a rebuild it was. Take us from when you first got there, what the job was like, and just how much work you had to do, and what went into it, because it was a ton.
Well, first of all, I think Al was the perfect guy at the perfect time. And, and Coach DeLeon was the offensive coordinator. So I was the offensive GA from 2006 to 2008. And
yet another incredible person, God rest his soul, who you got to interact with. Yeah.
A great friend and mentor to me, always willing to help out. But I think we're all really proud to be part of that program. We're all really proud to be part of the turnaround, players and coaches. It was a lot of work. I do think the first date with Megan was sometime after 11 o'clock at night. But we're all just really proud. It was among the worst programs in college football, and I think we all took great pride in being there and helping turn it around.
What are some of the names and faces that jump out to you from that time? Or can you even think of, I know sometimes when you start to see things turn around, it may not always be in a game. You might see a moment in practice, or you might see a moment in the weight room, or you might experience a moment where, because you had to do like the bed checks and the classroom checks, right? Are there any times where you just saw a moment in time where you thought things are starting to turn? These guys are starting to get it now.
Yeah, we went 1-11, then we went 4-8, then we went 5-7, and then my grad assistant was done, and I took the wide receivers job at Rhode Island, and a friend of mine and I went to a Phillies game, and so I was already gone, but it was that summer. It was that summer before, I guess it was the year they went to the bowl game. And I said, hey, I'll take you up and show you the practice facility. And this was in, the summer. There was no coaches around. And I saw the players running a players-only workout on the field. And it was one of the most impressive things I ever seen. And you could kind of get a sense the year before that we were heading in the right direction. We were 5-7. There was a lot of excitement. But it was kind of the moment when I knew, and I was on my way. I was already gone, but I said, they've flipped this thing. The players have taken it over, and I think that was the year they went to the bowl game.
What are those early years like, Ryan? When again, coaching is such a grind, and Al demanded a lot of you guys because you couldn't just come in and be like, hey, we're just going to do X, Y, and Z, and this will be fine. It was such a heavy rebuild. What are those early years like when the hours are endless and it's just constant work? What's it like when you think hopefully there's going to be a payoff at some point, but what are those early years like and how demanding is it?
Yeah, I think probably the best way I've heard it described over the years is, if you can do something else, do something else. But, if you have to be so, you have to love it that much to enjoy that part of it, because as you mentioned, it's challenging and it's challenging as a young coach, but it's probably as you get older and you have kids and things, a wife and kids, it probably even becomes more challenging then. So, your spouse has to be extremely understanding, but those early years, they were crazy. They were crazy. And it was a lot of work that went into it, but, there was a lot of excitement around the program.
How, when you look back at it, do you think at all about, I would guess you do, like just some of the names you've brought up just in the course of our conversation now, Ryan Day, George DeLeon, Al Golden, like all the people that kind of intersected with Temple that you got to be a part of. And it's a cool thing. The guys that have grown out of that Al Golden coaching tree, and it's not just Matt Rule. It's all these people that you've been around. Do you feel fortunate to be kind of part of that group that kind of just grew from that culture at Temple and all the people that you got to intersect with?
Yeah, you stay in touch. You stay in touch with all those guys, and it's a cool thing. There was a time at the NFL Combine where the whole offensive staff was all in one room together, which was pretty cool. Coach DeLeon, Ryan Day, and all those guys. So, it was a great experience to be part of, and Coach Golden put a really good staff together.
You've coached at just about every level, the FBS level with Temple, high level FBS at Penn State, the FCS level with Holy Cross, Albany, Rhode Island, Princeton, and of course your time in the NFL, and you've seen different crowds, different budgets, different fan bases, all these life changes. What's the common thread that keeps you going through all of it? Because you really do have a very well-rounded perspective on coaching and college football and pro football.
Well, I think at the end of the day, you're trying to get with a player and trying to chase a goal together, and you have to develop a relationship with the player, and he's got to know you're in his corner, and that, I think that's the thread that runs through it, as far as, just, open, honest communication, and then, you're chasing a goal together. And then I think the rest kind of takes care of itself. But, you have to love the teaching part of it. You have to love the mentoring part of it. And then you have to love the X's and O's. You have to love the challenge of trying to put a game plan together and trying to execute that. So I think those are things that go into it.
Hey, to close things out here again, I want to pay tribute to your family, to your wife Megan, who's tremendous, and you have 3 children, your 2 daughters and your son, and you've bounced around a lot and had some great jobs. What is it like just having that supportive family? What does family mean to you? Because I feel like I hear coaches, not that they didn't talk about it more in the past, but I feel like you hear them talk about it more now, the work-life balance, and that's never an easy thing. You guys have moved around a lot. What can you say just about having that supportive family and what that's meant to you? Because you've worked in a lot of different places, and I'm sure it's not easy when you're measuring out how are things going to go from year to year. I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety that comes with that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of unknowns when there's coaching changes.
Yeah,
but my wife is the rock of the family for sure. There's a lot of times when you're working late nights and she's a single parent, or you're on the road recruiting and she's a single parent, and the amount of sacrifices that she makes is unbelievable. And when you add the layers of moving, selling the house and buying a house and changing all the insurance and all those things. So she's the rock of the family for sure. My daughter Lucy's 9. She's in 4th grade. Callie is 7. She's in 2nd grade, and Jack is in kindergarten. And seeing them after a game is seeing the whole crew after a game is what you look forward to.
Ryan, this has been awesome. I know you're busy. I'll let you get back to game planning for Saturday, but this has it's been awesome to have this perspective. Great to see you. And
it was great catching up with you, John. And tell Miss Nadia Harvin I'll be looking for her on Saturday at the game. And Adam DeMichael, I said hello, and those guys.
I will. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, so big thanks to Ryan for being with us on the Scoop this week, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into Lafayette, and of course his time at Temple and what Al Golden meant to him, and that whole coaching tree that really involved so many people, so many important people like the late George DeLeon, Ryan Day, Matt Rule, all sorts of people that have been important to the program and important to the game of football. Again, when you look at Lafayette, tip of the cap to them. They started off this rebuilding effort 1-0. They beat Sacred Heart last week, despite getting just 113 yards of total offense. They have a true freshman quarterback starting in Ryan Schuster. So I think, in hearing Ryan talk there, he talked about the athleticism that they're going to be facing with Temple. I know that Temple can't take anything for granted heading into this game because they are 0-1. And they had so many miscues on both sides of the ball. But before we get into predictions here, Javon, I would think that this is a get-right game for Temple, right?
Like I said earlier, it's a bye game. That's in the definition of bye games. Mm-hmm. Get right, So correct some sloppy mistakes. Really, I think if I'm Stan, defensively, I'm giving Cam and Keyshawn, Cameron Ruiz to start next to Jalen McMurray. And I'm getting Keyshawn Paul some reps this week too. Need to see what he looks like because it can't get any worse than what you saw from Elijah Clark and Dominic Hill. I'm trying out a new kick returner this week because it can't get any worse than what you had last week. DeJuan Mathis. Listen, John, I hate morning time television. I despise it. However, Shannon Sharp, a Ravens great, he drops some good nuggets every now and then, particularly when he's talking about advice that either his grandmom or granddad gave him. He said his granddad once told him, he said, son, if someone's trying to show you who you are, you better believe them. Mm-hmm. Folks, DeJuan Mathis is showing us who he is. I believe him. With that being the case, yes, he starts, but give Patterson some reps because Drayton said in his press conference he saw everything that we saw. He thinks Patterson just needs mechanically some fixing. There's no better place to fix your mechanics outside of practice, of course, than in the game when you got people actually coming trying to take your head off. So I'd like to see him for a full quarter, maybe even a full half. Like you said, a get-right game. Try some different stuff. Throw some different personnel groupings out there and see what can stick. Obviously, you're not looking for the result per se. You're really looking for how crisp and tight it looks. Because these games against lesser opponents, you're looking for fundamentals and not flashy results. So that would be my approach heading into Saturday.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, every week's a different story. You mentioned maybe getting Keyshawn Paul some more snaps. According to Pro Football Focus, and we're going to be just to give you a taste of what our OwlScoop subscribers get every week. Kyle does a story where he recaps the precise snap counts, and we're not going to go through the whole list here with you, but on defense. And again, every game has its own personality. Every game's different. So they were trailing 24-0 at halftime. Again, they held Duke to 2 second-half field goals. That was it. They lose 30-0. But Keyshawn Paul only played 4 snaps the entire game. When they started rotating new guys in, it was Deion Hawkins and not Keyshawn Paul initially. So he could be a guy that you see. Keep an eye on Brendan Scott at safety. I'll be interested to see what they do at that position as well, if they start shifting some guys around at linebacker. But, the guys near the top of the chart there in terms of snaps, Jordan McGee played 57 snaps, Alex Odom played 53, Jalen McMurray played 52, Leighton Jordan played 51, Darian Varner played 43. Again, I'm not going to go down the whole list here, but you can kind of see early on who they trust. And down at the bottom of that list, who's still figuring things out there. So yeah, we'll see if Cameron Ruiz played 7 snaps in that game. Now, granted, could be a couple things like we've discussed. It could be that he is legitimately trailing these guys on the depth chart. Another big piece of it could be that he missed a lot of the offseason with an injury, with what Stan considered a significant leg injury. So he played 7 snaps in the game. Keyshawn Paul played 4. So we'll see what happens there. But I agree with you, Javon. I mean, especially in the return game, see what, I think that you've seen what you've seen from Ahmad Anderson. That this is a player, if you want to be honest, the previous staff did not offer him. Temple had the chance to recruit and evaluate him when he was in high school. He ended up at Purdue, but Temple never offered him before. Now they took him, Rod's staff took him as a transfer. We'll see. We'll see if he can get things turned around. I agree with you. I kind of think you've seen what you've seen there out of him. Going on down the line here for staff predictions, I think that, I think it's possible for Temple to go from not scoring at all at Duke to, breaking out in this game. They should. And again, I like Ryan. I've known him for close to 20 years. I wish Lafayette well, but they've got a long way to go. I think this is a game that Temple should win and win easily. I've got this one as a 31-3 Temple win over Lafayette. Kyle's prediction is Temple 41, Lafayette 7. He said to us, copy and paste the Wagner game. Javon, what's your prediction on this one?
I'll go to be generous, 28-3. I'm not going to share Kyle's 41-7 copy and paste from Wagner sentiments. Maybe I should, because I do think Temple has a better roster this season and a way better coaching staff, of course. In Lafayette, I guess you can consider a worse program than Wagner. So maybe
level. I mean, John Troxell did a good job. Again, we're talking about an FCS program, and then John Troxell was at Franklin and Marshall, and is a really highly respected guy there. They're just recruiting at a different level and developing at a different level, of course. But I don't know. But yeah.
So that 41-7 is very likely. I think last week I kind of burnt myself. I'm going to be a little more cautious and safe with my predictions from here on out. I'm going to stick to a very safe 28-3. I'm looking at Max's 27-3, and I'm liking that even more.
Yeah, Max Sinnenberg from our staff has Temple winning this one 27-3. Javon is the guy who put his hand on the stove and got burnt with his prediction last week. Let's go to the mailbag to close things out here. We have a few mailbag questions from the message board this week, and these are OwlScoop.com subscribers. These are screen names we're reading to you. The first question comes from JHG722. Question there: how much of that loss was a total indictment of the Rod Carey era?
That's a great question.
I'd say it's in large part an indictment of the Rod Carey era. Now, again, a couple of these players were not even recruited by Rod Carey. Isaac Moore and Adam Klein weren't recruited by Rod Carey. Now, again, I do think that you've got pretty solid players there in Adam Klein and Isaac Moore. Now Isaac Moore ends up committing a penalty. And again, I think for the most part, if you were to go back and watch the game, I don't think that Isaac Moore played a terrible game at left tackle. I think more of their issues came at guard, where they're a lot younger, but he gets burned there on a penalty that killed the drive. Again, if he doesn't get the hold there and the Darvon Hubbard 5-yard run goes for a first down, does that mean they win the game? No, probably not. But again, Elijah Clark, not recruited by Rod Carey, but I do think that the last 3 years, and I'm not about breaking any news here, the last 3 years have really set the program back. That first season, I think Rod pressed a lot of the right buttons, and then they obviously got their clocks cleaned in the bowl game against North Carolina, and things went downhill after that. Again, you can develop to a certain point. You need talent, you need depth. But I'm sure, again, now obviously Stan is a first-time head coach. Danny Langsdorff and DJ Elliott are experienced assistant coaches, as is Jafar Williams, as is Joel Montanar. And he's got some experience on that staff. They bear some responsibility, of course. Anytime your team loses, your staff bears some of the responsibility there. Maybe they could have tweaked some things differently. I give them credit for making whatever adjustments they made in the second half. Now, did Mike Elko adjust, and did Kevin Johns adjust? Did they come up with a little bit more of a conservative game plan to kind of just get out of there in the second half and get away with a win? Probably. But, the current staff bears some responsibility on this. I'm sure they would say this, but I would say it's in large part, I don't know, I wouldn't call it a total indictment of the Rod Carey era, but it's a big part of it. I don't know how you feel about this one, Javon.
Yeah, it's college sports. It's sports in general. When the last coach, the last general manager, the last vice president of operations leaves you with a roster that isn't in the best shape, the next season, it's like baseball. When a pitcher comes out, he's still responsible for some of those base runners. Those are going to be his earned runs. It's just like that in college football, college basketball, and any professional sport. These are still the last staff's earned runs. Granted, the relief pitcher, the new staff, still bears some responsibility, but they can only do so much with what they've taken in, and what they took in wasn't the greatest product. Like they're in the game for a reason. Bases are loaded, and the last guy gave up 2 runs already.
Javon, bringing a little baseball talk into the scoop. I like it. Second question here. The screen name is Jeff MD49. Question is, why were there no deep balls to stretch the field, and why weren't there more design running plays for our QB since both can run? Jeff, whether you like the answer or not, Stan addressed this in his Monday press conference. He was asked about that. And, for the most part, and we'll play the audio for you here in a second, that things were kind of all over the place, that they were off schedule in terms of their implementing their offensive game plan. And Stan, you'll hear him say it here in a second, just the opportunity just didn't present itself because they never really got into a rhythm. But here's Stan Drayton answering that question on Monday. So we'll just give this to you right from his mouth.
Well, this is a matter of just getting in a rhythm, right? If you're not having success on first down, you're calling an off-schedule second down play. And, we're playing a battle of field position type of football, and obviously that is in our package to throw a vertical ball, but it just didn't present itself this week.
All right, and the final question from Mike TB31. The question here from the mailbag: which QB gives us a better chance to win? I still think, look, people may think I'm being boring here. This is a week-to-week thing. As of now, to me, it's still Dwan Mathis. Based on what I saw from the limited time of Quincy Patterson, I will say this. Quincy Patterson's coming in late in the game. There's no shot in hell that they're going to win the game at that point. And Quincy comes in and now granted, he played pretty well for North Dakota State last year, got hurt, comes back, lost his starting job to the next guy, but comes in on running packages and is a big part of the equation that helps them win, the FCS national championship. So you tip your cap to him. he hasn't played throwing quarterback reps in a long time. And I think that's part of it. But what we saw of him throwing the ball late in the game wasn't great. So I've got to say right now that D'Wan Mathis gives you the better chance to win. I think there was a lot that did not go well around D'Wan Mathis. Do I think he's ultimately the long-term solution? Maybe not. Maybe Elijah Warner is your long-term solution. Maybe Tyler Douglas is your long-term solution. But you're talking about a true freshman and a guy who's still a senior in high school at Ocean Township at this point. As of now, for me, it's D'Wan. Now, talk to me in a couple of weeks. If D'Wan really just isn't getting it and the interior of the offensive line is starting to play better, then maybe Quincy Patterson gives you the better chance to win. Maybe 2 weeks from now, Quincy has become a more confident runner, and maybe he's a run first, throw second quarterback, and maybe you get him into some, hey, let's set him up for success here. Some easy throws, some dump off throws.
An offense filled with RPOs, which Dante would love.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, again, we go off the limited body of work that we have for him at Temple. Not that he doesn't have a body of work from North Dakota State, but as of now, that answer is D'Wan Mathis. But let's talk in another couple of weeks. What do you think?
Agree with everything you said. I can't add anything to it. Took the words right out of my mouth.
I'm sorry. I feel
I mean, we've been saying it. We've been having this conversation with each other for, 2 years now?
Yeah. So, well, that'll do it for this week. Again, stay tuned. I should say this before we close things out, just a quick basketball recruiting update. Again, for those of you who are owlscoop.com subscribers, if you get the chance, I did talk to Zion Stanford about his official visit to Temple. He visited Boston College this past weekend. Then he told me that he has one more official visit set up with Drexel, and then he's going to decide after that. I would think that Temple is right in the mix for the West Catholic small forward here. We'll see. We'll keep you updated on that. Again, stay tuned to owlscoop.com. We will keep you updated on his recruitment and as things continue to develop in the next few weeks heading into the season for Temple's basketball team. But for Javon and the brief appearances from Sam and Cayden, hope to have Kyle back soon at some point. I want to say thanks to you guys for tuning in for another episode of The Scoop, and we will talk to you soon.